the first and most common questions in watercolour painting when people are learning is how to mix the paint with the water. It sounds simple enough, but it's something new students struggle with. How much paint and how much water, and how to mix it up. I always suggest starting with the water. Step 1 is to analyse the area that you need to paint. In this example, I'm talking about the background of these shells. So how much water would I need to paint that entire area, to cover it with a thin film of water? Use a thick brush to soak up the water out of your clean water container and start making a puddle. A puddle big enough that you think that you'd cover the area that you want to paint. So this is not a tiny painting. This area is a 1/16 sheet, and I need to cover all of the area that's not painted by shell. So I'm going to need quite a lot of water, quite a lot of mixture to cover that. So keep dropping water from your water container into your palette until you think you've got a puddle that is big enough to cover the area that you want to paint. Now you need to decide the strength of the colour that you want to paint. You're going to add pigment to your puddle, and you're going to test it to see if it's the right strength. So you'll need a test strip of some description. It's always best to use proper watercolour paper for a test strip. Okay, so you're getting your pigment out. Sometimes if you've got dry pigment like I do, it's a good idea to spray the one that you're using to loosen it up. If you haven't done that, you might need to twiddle around in it a bit to loosen the pigment there. And rinse your brush off in the puddle. Now don't dip your brush back in the water, or you'll be adding more water to the pigment puddle. You don't want to do that because your puddle will get lighter. So at this stage you're avoiding adding more water. All you're doing now, you've already calculated the water, all you're doing now is adding pigment. I'm going to get some Australian red gold in there. And maybe a little permanent rose. Now I'm going to test that. That's way too light. I'm wanting a sandy look, so I'm going to have to get more pigment. So without dipping my brush in the water, I'm twiddling it in my paint and then rinsing the brush out in the puddle. This is not adding volume to the puddle. You've already calculated the water, and so the volume of the puddle should be fairly similar at the start to when you finish up. So adding the 3 colours that I talked about before, using raw sienna, Australian red gold and a little bit of permanent rose to pink it up a little bit. I'm doing another test, and that is getting darker. Right, so now I have what I feel is the correct amount of wash to cover this painting background, and it's tinted in the correct way. Now I know that I'm not going to run out of paint.